Okay, my YouTube people, today in Rap's Garage Shop, I'm going to be putting together a Vevor welding table. This is a foldable welding table that Mrs. Rap got me for Christmas. She got tired of seeing me hunched over welding on the ground and decided to take it upon herself, jumped on Amazon and got me this table. So I'm going to show you the assembly of the table. First thing I always like to do is separate the hardware into like pieces. So you can see I have the long bolts, the short bolts, the nuts, washers, and wing nuts all in their own little pile. For me, this is a lot easier. This is what this table is supposed to look like when it's all finished and set up. The one thing I already noticed is that they show these side pieces being held on by 3 wing nuts each. I noticed on mine it only has 2. I'm thinking I can overcome that issue. Alright, this is the top of the welding table, and it shows this going on. It also shows it with this lip facing down. I recommend wearing leather gloves or some kind of protective glove while you're doing this, because a lot of these edges can be a little bit sharp. This type of table works really well for me since I'm limited on space. It's Rap's Garage Shop and it's a small little shop. So a collapsible table works well. It's the one side. This is the back. Again, this lip faces out and down. Like that. You know you have a great wife when she's buying you stuff for the garage, not complaining about the stuff you have in the garage. She knew when we bought this house that her car would never be parked in this garage. You can tell this is the front because the name's on the front. Next thing I have to do is put this tilt section together. So these are the parts I have to put together next. Like that. And they're the parts that it takes. And even though it has a lock washer, of course you already know, yes, I'm going to use some blue Loctite. So I'm just going to dab Loctite on each one of these 6 bolts. This bracket here has a 90-degree bend, and they show this plate on the opposite side of the bend. I'm just going to go bolt, lock washer, and then I'm going to put the nut on. But I always leave everything loose and then tighten everything all at once. Now that I have all 3 on and loose, I'm going to tighten them up. There it is. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. Next thing you have to do is assemble the brackets onto the main table. Also, it uses a recessed bolt, and the nuts are welded into the table, and I'm going to Loctite those in as well. To attach those brackets, it ends up being a screw and not a bolt. You can see the nuts that they go into on the bottom of this bracket. This goes on here, like that, and then the screws go in. I'm going to use one in the center so that I can put the Loctite on the screws and then put them in. Now just tighten them up. That's what that looks like. Now do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now I have both sides on. This is the next part I have to do. Grab the 2 rails and put the cross piece on them. It looks pretty simple. Here's the long screws, washers, and nuts that these take. With these legs, these screws are welded on, tacked on, and they face out, and then this bracket goes on those like this. So the screw goes through, then a regular old flat washer, and a nut on all 4 of these. Of course, I put Loctite on it. There it is, all together. Now I just have to square it up and tighten it. To square this up, I just use a regular old carpenter square. Go along the top. Okay, now it's all tight and square. Next thing to do is put the legs together and put the casters on the legs along with grippy feet. So these are the 3 parts I have, and pretty easy to see that these get bolted like this, and then there's another plate that goes onto this side that gets bolted on. Here's that plate for the other side, and I'm just going to bolt it like this. At this time in the directions, it does not tell you to put this bolt in. I'm just going to put it in now for ease of assembly. I have some Loctite on that. Just put the leg up like this. Now it's through, gets a flat washer and a nut. I'm going to leave this loose until I get everything assembled. And now I'm going to take this one out since I don't need it. Now I'll build the other set of legs. If you note in the instructions, looks like they both get mounted the same way, but when they get put together, it actually gets mounted this way, where one nut's facing this way and this one's facing the opposite way. Next thing I'm going to do is put the 4 feet up in the ends of the legs, and they go this way. You don't want to try and mount them this way. Then I'm just going to take the matching hammer and just tap them until they bottom out. Just like that. Now do the other 3. One other thing I forgot to point out while I was building the legs, there is 2 different style of legs. One has the 3 hole, the other one has 2 holes. When you're building them, the ones with 2 holes, one goes on one side with the welded nut and the other one goes on the other side without the nut. Next thing I have to do is put the tool holder on, and it goes onto the 2 legs with the 3 holes. The hardware for that is 2 long screws, 2 flat washers, and 2 nuts. Now that I have that on, I have it loose. There's a bar that goes across the side with the 2 holes, and I'm going to put that on next. This is the next piece to go on. This is the hardware. 4 more of those long screws, flat washers, and nuts. There you have it. The legs are built. Next thing I have to do is connect the table to the uprights. When connecting the uprights, you want the flat side of this piece, not the angle side, facing the front where the name is. So it's going to go on like this. This kit shows that it takes 4 of these nuts and 4 of these flat washers, but I only have 1 of these nuts left. So I guess I'm going to have to get some of my own. In the directions, it doesn't say where to use these, and I'm guessing that they're for the table so that you can tilt it easily. So I'm going to use the nut as the pivot and then this knob as the lock. It didn't show it using washers, and also this nut is metric thread, so thankfully I did have one. Now these pivot nuts I'm going to Loctite, and I'm not going to tighten them so tight that I can't pivot the table. So I used a nut with Loctite here and snugged it, but it's loose enough that the legs move. And then I have this hand wheel there, and that's the lock-in position for this. This also comes with these rubber rollers that go onto this rod. I'm going to put those on, and then they go down in the bottom of the feet. I just start them on like this, and then I'm just going to give them a tap with the matching hammer. These go on down here. Looks like they're going to need a little help with the matching hammer. Now do the other side. That's what they look like all inserted in. Now I'm going to put the tabletop on. Use these metal pieces, and they go in the top of the triangle here so that you can change the height on the fly. Just like that. And I guess you turn these knobs and that steadies everything up. There's also this handle to put on. It goes on the front over here. There's what it looks like with the handle on. I'm going to stick that on. I don't feel like I need to show that on camera. It's pretty simple. Now what you see is the completed assembly, but I wanted to point out a few things. As you can see here and here that they have the knobs on opposite sides. I don't really think they're needed on opposite sides like that. I don't see the point of it. Then here, instead of the knob, it shows wing nuts, and there wasn't enough wing nuts in the kit to use 2 wing nuts. There was only 1 extra. So I'm going to stay with the knobs on that. Not really sure why to have these bottom poles on there like they do. Maybe it's just a little more stability. The table seems pretty stable. I think it'll do what I need it to do when I'm welding. So here's the welding table folded up. It's pretty small. Pretty happy with that. Also, it did come with these caster wheels. You put them on the other legs, and I think that's so you can slide it underneath something. But I really don't have a use for that, so I'm not going to put them on. Hope this video helped. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.